Never heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Should I have?
It's a ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs.
Welcome back, everybody, to Kessel Run Weekly. My name is Cheyenne. As I think a few of our team members have followed you for a while and watched your streams and hung out, and I know Grace always recommends rating you during our Twitch streams. And then last week? Last week you joined us for a stream?
Yeah, we had a huge party last week. We played Battlefront 2, but we found you guys through Grace, and
oh, nice.
It's been awesome. It's been awesome getting to get to know you guys, getting to talk to people about Star Wars and hanging out. So.
Oh yeah, it's awesome to have more fans, more friends. We love making this circle bigger. It's so fun. So today we are going to do a character chat about Poe Dameron. I know Kimmy and I are both excited. I hope our listeners are excited. We've kind of just been picking our favorite characters to do this for, which I just love. It's not in particular order. There's no deep science behind why we are talking about who we're talking about. It's just I ask the guests, I'm like, who do you want to talk about? But before we do that, Kimmy, I want our listeners to get to know you. So we're going to ask you a few Star Wars questions. None of them are too deep. They're all very chill. And if you don't have an answer for them, if you're just I don't know, you can say that. I don't care, you know? So the first question is, when did you get into Star Wars?
I actually grew up with Star Wars, so I have siblings who are way older than I. So my brother grew up with the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. So he was young enough to remember the stuff as it happened. And when I was younger, so about 4, he used to put on Return of the Jedi for me all the time. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching that VHS going to sleep every night because it was the coolest thing ever. And it's just kind of stuck with me. It's been a family thing, so
nice.
I feel like it just makes sense to us.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't have any siblings that were into it, but my parents got me into it, and it was always kind of a family affair when we watched it at home, and then seeing the prequels for the first time when I was a kid was amazing.
Oh, yeah, having my own Star Wars to watch, it was this is mine. I can watch this. This is my own thing that I get to do. And then having the sequels come out and having my brother's kids and my sister's kids being part of that, it's this is so cool.
It's so nice. It's so comforting. My friend actually right now, as we speak, is watching. She might be done with episode 7 right now. So she's now officially in the sequel trilogy, and she watched it in timeline order, not release date order. So she's asking me a lot of questions, and I'm just I'm not gonna, the sequel trilogy has so much content in it, you have no idea. You need to just watch it. Don't ask me anything.
There's... You gotta watch and then watch it again.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on in them.
So much going on. So, she, and her kids are, I think her kids at this point are not necessarily too young. Her older one probably could get it. He's 4. But her younger one probably wouldn't understand it, because when I saw it, I was 4. So I was just pumped, you know?
Star Wars.
Yeah, it's just so different to think about, the kid's mind with the sequel trilogy, my mind with the prequel trilogy, and then, how adults in the fandom currently saw the originals as adults. A lot of the people that I talked to were adults when they came out, rather than kids, and I'm just that's insane.
It's weird when you get to talk to people too about what generation they got into it with.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the originals obviously, but
mm-hmm.
Having, I said before, having the prequels be my generation was kind of cool. But seeing other people how they get into it, because I took my friends to see when I was oh my god, I think I was 8 when Phantom Menace came out, and I remember I took one of my friends with me because we were having a party,
mm-hmm.
and she'd never seen Star Wars. This was her first Star Wars,
oh.
so for her to come in from that,
mm-hmm.
and then have to watch the original trilogy, and then finally getting to see how the story plays out, amazing. It's the best experience to watch somebody see it for the first time.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love it so much. So your favorites. We're gonna go through a few favorites. Your favorite character.
Favorite character of all time would definitely have to be Leia.
Nice. Okay, is there a reason why?
She's just a very strong character. She was a role model growing up, and it's different when you see I'm a huge Disney fan. I love Disney princesses. I just love everything about Disney. But, like, seeing those princesses versus, like, Princess Leia. Princess Leia wasn't just, you know, some girl locked in a tower. She kicked butt. She just did whatever she wanted to do. She knew what was right, and she stood up for it. And that was just a great role model to have growing up. Like, especially today, not seeing a lot of, well, we are getting a lot more of, like, strong female leads, which is awesome, but we have to, like, thank her. She's what paved the way. She got more of, like, the strong female character that we needed, that role model that wasn't going to just sit back and take it. She was going to fight. So,
and in a space, in a male-dominated genre as well, too, which just, like, I feel like, not necessarily that it gets overlooked, I think that's really kind of the point, you know, of her role and everything. It's in a genre dominated by men, literally written by a man, and edited by a woman, his wife. Like, it's just, there's so many, like, little snippets in it that people, I think, forget about Leia's reasoning, or Leia's kind of purpose and inspiration for people, you know? Do you have a least favorite character?
I have a few. Not least favorite, but, like, I just have characters that, not that I don't like them, they're just disappointing on how they turned out.
Okay.
I guess. So it's not really that I mean, I guess we could all say Jar Jar Binks at the end of the day. But I'd have to say I'm more disappointed in, like, out of all the characters, I guess, would be Finn. Finn was probably my most disappointed character.
Okay.
He started out so, I don't know, he just started out like he could have been something more, and then they just kind of pooped on his arc at the end there, and I was very upset about it, because we could have had so much more with him. It's such a cool story, too. Like, he's a stormtrooper who defects and then goes to the other side, and like, there was so much we could have had from him, and then just seemed like everything that he had going for him was shoehorned at the end, and we didn't really touch upon it. It was kind of lame. So it's not really, I guess, Finn's fault.
That's fair.
That's kind of where that is.
That's fair. No, absolutely. And it's nice to have a different view of the definition. Like, you know that it's not Finn's fault, but it's what you're most disappointed in. So that makes sense entirely. Your favorite lightsaber battle?
Favorite battle? Oh gosh. I'm gonna say the Obi-Wan Anakin lightsaber battle, because it's just, there's so much passion in it. It's like brother fighting brother, and, like, you know, the betrayal that's behind it. It's so good. There's so many good lightsaber battles too. But that one just, I don't know, as much as people like to crap on the prequels, I love them.
I do too.
I love them a lot. Like,
Me
they're
too.
mine. Like, I'm biased to them. So that one definitely is my favorite.
Yeah, mine's from the prequels too. It's Duel of the Fates. It's iconic. They're both iconic. And I think, too, BTS videos of them training really make me love it more. Like, I don't think we get to see a lot of, like, Ray Park's BTS of that, but for for Ewan and Hayden, their BTS of them just goofing around and also being amazing at the same time is incredible.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote from the franchise?
Oh, you're asking a lot of hard questions.
I know
these weren't good enough.
They're surface level hard. It is hard. I can't think of my favorite quote, to be honest.
I had to. Oh gosh. Yeah, no, I'm drawing a blank on what my favorite would be.
Yeah, I struggle with this one. Sometimes I don't even ask it, and sometimes I do, simply for the sheer fact of, like, to me, hearing someone's favorite quote is one of the, like, an inside scoop, you know?
Yeah.
Like, but mine tends to change. So it always is.
To really pick one.
Yeah.
Because we could go, like, for, you know, the more, like, the classics, like, help me with Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope, like, something like that, or even, like, the more profound, like, do or do not, there is no try.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Depends on what mood you're in.
I am the Senate. There, I'm going with that one. I am the Senate.
Yes. Such a good one, too. Every time I think of quotes from Sidious, I think of unlimited power.
Unlimited power!
It's so funny, because when you're watching it, it's not funny. You're like, oh no. But in hindsight, I always laugh about that quote.
Oh, yeah.
So this one's a bit deeper. What keeps you coming back to Star Wars?
Well, besides that, it's like, I can't go anywhere in my house without Star Wars being a thing. I don't know, it's just this story, I guess. The whole idea that there's, at the end of the day, it's the basic good versus evil. There's really nothing super special about it, like at the bare minimum, but it's just that kind of story that it's fantasy. It's the kind of thing that's like, okay, maybe I could be in space one day, and I could, be like a scavenger or something. Like, you always get to root for the underdog in it, and you feel like you could be that underdog, I guess. Yeah. So, Rey comes from nothing. Luke Skywalker technically came from nothing, but we found out he's actually kind of important. Right. But, it's just like anyone can make a difference. And I think that's why it's just an inspiring story to keep coming back to.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could own any creature, what would it be?
Probably a Wampa. No, a Tauntaun. I want a Tauntaun.
Nice.
Smelly on inside and outside.
Yeah, I do love Tauntauns. I was reading, I'm still kind of reading, but I was reading Master and Apprentice, and they talked about the Varactyls, the thing that Obi-Wan rode, and the more I read about it, the more I want one. I've transitioned from Tauntaun to Varactyl. What color would your lightsaber be? This is our last question.
I always thought it would be purple, and my lightsaber that I made down in Disney World is purple, but I think it would actually be amber, like the amber orangey color.
Yeah.
It would not be the typical, blue, green, or red. I would be somewhere in between. Yeah. And that's how you dealt with that weird gray user that they all talk about, so.
Oh, yeah. I always wonder what mine would be, because I always say red. Like, it's instinct for me to say red. Yeah, and I'm always just like, what other options do I have?
There's so many, too.
There's so many.
Now, I forget what is it? It's Knights of the Republic that brought in a lot of just the different colors, too. And
I think so, and then Jedi Fallen Order it didn't expand on it, it kind of let you pick your color, but there was more variety than you would think there would be. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, there's a lot of colors to pick from, but I just feel like picking that middle ground, I don't have to be a Sith, and I don't have to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
Just me.
Just you.
Myself.
That's it. Okay, well, that's it. Those are our get to know Kimmy questions. But we will go ahead and move forward onto Poe. And first things first, why did you want to talk about Poe? What's your attachment or interest in him?
So I actually had a hard time picking a character. I kind of went back and forth for a little bit, just like, who would be a good character to talk about? And there's so many characters in Star Wars, and I jokingly said I wanted to talk about Bossk, but I don't think we could spend an entire day talking about Bossk.
Yeah, true.
We could try.
Absolutely.
It'd be a very short podcast. But at the end of the day, it was between either him or Kylo Ren, and I'm like, I can't be that fangirl. I just can't. I can't do it. But Poe Dameron is just he's very relatable, I think, is the whole thing with him. He's like a hot-headed, cocky son of a bee sting. He knows what he wants to do, and he's very passionate about what he does. And because he's so, I don't know, it's very relatable for me, because I'm told all the time by my girlfriend that I'm very hot-headed and I cause a lot of problems. Yeah. But because it's something that I believe in and I'm that passionate about, and it's just, we're kind of the same person, I feel like. Because I get it. If there's something that you want to do and there's something that you believe in wholeheartedly, go for it. Even if it's considered reckless, and even if you get yelled at by General Organa, it's fine.
Yeah, everything's fine. No, I love that. And I love finding the relatability between characters. For me, Kira is one of my only, I think she's my only Star Wars cosplay that I have right now, but I jumped at the chance to create her as my first cosplay because I related to her immediately, and it was weird to think about. I was like, her life is so different. It's fake and it's in space, and I was just like, it's fine. But I really vibed with her, for lack of a better word, and I was just like, yeah, you find the thing and you just go with it. So I'm going to go ahead and start this off with my long-winded question. and more, not even just a question, more of a discussion as well that I've actually just recently discovered. So I'm on TikTok, as are many. And because of the way the algorithm works, I tend to like a lot of Star Wars stuff. And this topic kept coming up. So for me, as a white woman, I didn't think about Poe being a spice runner as anything more significant than us getting more of his story. I thought, oh, they were just like planting a seed, and they want to tell a story about Poe and how he got to be such a cool and diverse pilot in like his ability to do all these things when the clock is running out, for lack of a better word. I was like, great, this is awesome. But upon further interaction in the community, like I said, on TikTok is where I actually first saw somebody bring this up. And people of color and in the Hispanic community pointed out that Poe, being represented by a Hispanic actor, and being a spice runner relates to a big stereotype that they tend to have. Do you think that this is something that should be addressed or thought about? Because for me, when I first thought about it, like I said, I thought, cool, we're just going to get more story. But I'm a white girl, you know? I have heritage. It's Jamaican Chinese, but it's still not that heritage, you know? And at first when I thought about this whole topic, I was like, oh, well, it's important to deep dive because that's literally what Star Wars does. They take real world issues and they address them. But at first I was also like, did they mean to do that though? Were they just planting the seed and then people were like, hey, hello?
Probably. I'm going to say, I mean, again, also as a white girl, I don't know what they were thinking, and I don't want to speak for them, saying
right.
that maybe there was something more in there, and maybe there is something deeper we could dive into, because you know what, that's something that I can't relate to, that's something
right.
that a lot of us can't relate to, that's something that, you know, obviously a whole community can relate to, and that's, or at least understand what they were trying to pull from, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing.
Right.
As I said before, I love Disney. I love Disney very much. They are also very, very deaf when it comes to certain things, and they don't know how to express stuff properly, so I don't think this was very well thought out.
Okay.
I don't think that they, or if they did, I don't think that they were ever going to get into it as much as any other topic that they would have pulled up, because again, with the Rise of Skywalker, everything was shoehorned in. Same thing with what happened to Finn, and same thing what happened to like a lot of characters. There wasn't enough time to go through things, which is why they do the comic series, which is why they have extra books, and that's why we have all this kind of stuff. Is this a topic that they should touch upon and kind of explain better? If it, you know, makes a community understand and like see what they're coming from, and if it helps to, you know, make even like us understand what this is, and like, you know, the deeper side of things. Yeah. Maybe? That's cool. Let's not step on toes.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because when I thought about this too, I was like, you know, we tend to, and the reason that I think I had my initial thought about, oh, it's just planting a seed for more stories, I was like, but because when we look at Star Wars, we think humans and then different types of aliens. We never think of different types of humans. You know, it's never been like the impression that you get. You just get humans and then the different types of aliens as that form of diversity because it's fake and it's in space, you know? Exactly. So it's...
I mean, still with the stuff now, like, that's, like, the sequels definitely have more diversity, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Please, more of that. That's amazing. Because if you think about it, back with the original trilogy, it was 3 white main characters.
Yeah.
And even in the prequels, it was mostly white main characters. Like, sure, we had a few things speckled in there, but there really wasn't representation. Right. And now we have these, and, like, I understand Disney was trying to put more representation in there, but I don't think they planned further than just, look, we have a female leader. Look, we have, you know, the Spanish community. We're representing them. Look, we have, like, I don't think it was thought out that way. Right. And that makes me sad, because, you know what, we should celebrate cultures, and we should be able to discuss things and go further into stuff, but I don't think they thought it through.
True. Yeah, that's entirely fair. We're talking about Poe, and this is something that the Hispanic community has been pointing out, and I've noticed, so I feel like we have a platform, I can at least bring it up, you know?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So we'll move past. For any of our listeners that have thoughts on any of that, you can always reach out to the Kessel Run Weekly Instagram and shoot us a message and be like, this is how I feel about it. No yelling though, because we'll block you. Don't yell at people. Just be nice and have.
I'm scared of yelling.
Yeah, have a productive discussion with us. That's what we're here for. So, talking about Poe's story in general, what is your favorite part of his story so far?
If you have one. Completely just rash and just does his own thing and causes a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Pretty much that. No, his story just is really exciting because he is a child of the rebellion. Mm-hmm. His parents are like huge roles in the rebellion. His mom was a pilot. His dad was like a lieutenant, I think.
I think so.
He is in there. Like that is his life. The one thing that I do love the most though about just his upbringing is his mom was such a big part of his life. Mm-hmm. Up until she unfortunately passed away. Like, he was young, but, like, she had left that much of an impression on him where he became the best pilot in the galaxy. Mm-hmm. Like, that's so cool. Like, again, Star Wars, and every time I say it's about family, all I think about is Red Letter Media making fun of it. But it's about family. And, like, you know, seeing that kind of thing and seeing the generations and how it affects what a child would see from, you know, their own eyes, and seeing like, okay, my parents fought in this, they are a skilled pilot, like one of them is a skilled pilot, and like I'm learning from this. It's cool. It's cool to me. I like seeing this kind of generational thing.
Yeah, I agree, and that actually is the perfect lead-in to my next question. So when I was reading up, because like I said, I don't know that much about Poe, but his family, I guess, or he was originally part of the New Republic Defense Fleet, and then defected to the rebellion. So, were his parents in the rebellion, or in both?
So, his mom, if I recall, she's technically in the rebellion. She was in the Alliance. I think they word it as the Alliance to restore the Republic.
Yeah, I think you're right.
They word it differently, but she was in the rebellion. That's basically how it is. A lot of the stuff we learned in the book series, I forgot what it was. I think it was Afterlife in that series. I don't remember what one it was.
I haven't read Aftermath yet, so I don't know all of them.
Yeah, so we learned about, like, you know, his parents, and, like, they were technically they're in the rebellion.
Yes.
You know, because it's all still part of the rebellion.
Right.
But he started out just kind of following in his parents' footsteps, trying to, you know, do what he can. And it's actually General Organa who pulls him out of it. She's like, we kind of need people to be rash, even though I think you're kind of a jerk about it. But we need that kind of passionate person. So she actually calls his irrationality passionate for a little bit, which I always thought was funny, because in, like, The Last Jedi, she yells at him for it, which I guess is more just, like, her trying to get him to be the pilot she knows he can be and the leader he can be.
Yeah.
Because, like, he's the leader of, like, these squadrons. He's got to be a leader. But, yeah, she pulls him out of it, and he defects and turns into the Resistance, and, you know, that's when we see him eventually going to Lord Santeca.
Right, okay. Yeah, that helps clarify some things that I had, because I was just like, I read it, and then I was like, so where was he? Both places. So I did think of something while we were talking, and I have more of a theory question. I tend to try and put theory questions into these little chats. So my theory question is, and I'll base it off of this is based off of my personal thoughts entirely. When I watched The Last Jedi, is that the episode? Yes. So in the end of The Last Jedi, when he meets Rey, and he says, I know, because she says, I'm Rey, and he says, I know, and it's cute. And I felt that it was cute. My body was like, oh. So it was just a immediate reaction. Where do you think they could have gone with that? Do you think they should have? If you disagree with me, totally let me know. Like, what's up? What do you think that could have led to, if anything at all?
Like, romantically, or just, like, in general? Like,
in general.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Like their sibling rivalry, like, not rivalry, but, like, their sibling banter that they have in Rise of Skywalker.
Me too.
I just thought it was very cute. Mm-hmm. It's a shame we didn't get to see, I think that's mostly just what my gripe is with The Last Jedi. I get we were on our 3 solo missions between each character, but we don't get to see Rey and Poe interact because in The Force Awakens they don't really get to do anything.
Yeah.
In The Last Jedi, they get maybe 2 seconds together, and then suddenly they're best friends. I wish they, just kind of fleshed it out a little bit more.
Absolutely.
But, I think that they were better off as, like, a sibling relationship, like, just having, like, that cute little banter between each other.
Yeah.
Now, if I want to talk about who should have had a romantic thing with Poe.
Yes, go off.
Very adamant about Finn Poe. I am so mad that did not happen.
Yeah. It's such an interesting concept. I was just like, oh, like, this is so cool. Like, they're becoming buddies, so this must mean that, like, Finn becomes a pilot, or, I was thinking very surface level at all, which is why it even surprised me when I thought about Poe and Rey, because I was like, I don't ever romance in Star Wars has never been something that's at my forefront of my mind when I think of Star Wars. Like, even Han and Leia, for me, was just very, like, surface level. I kind of brushed it off. It wasn't, like, deeper.
The point of them, which is nice. Like, Han and Leia had that relationship, and a lot of that stuff did get fleshed out in Bloodline, the book with that, which was great reading that. I highly recommend it if people haven't read that.
Yeah.
But their relationship wasn't the typical, like, thing that you see in these kind of fantasy and sci-fi movies where it's like, oh, we're so in love, look at us, everything's great. Like, it's how love really is. Like, just like, I hate you, stop trying to kiss me, but also, hi, I love you. Like, that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
And that's why, at first I thought it was cute in The Force Awakens, like, their banter together, and then just the way that, like, they interacted, and I guess, I don't know, because, surprise, I hope this doesn't ruin the podcast, but I'm gay.
No, it won't.
But, like, I don't know, I guess because it's just not, it's just something I'm used to in life. It's like seeing gay couples and, like, wanting that representation. And I know at first I was probably, like, reaching for it, because I'm like, please, just represent me in something. No. And then just the way that they interacted from then, and even though they didn't have too much in The Last Jedi together, just the chemistry together. Yeah. And then The Rise of Skywalker, the first 10 minutes of the movie is them just, like, being a couple, basically. Yeah. And it's like, why couldn't we get that? Right. Why couldn't we get it? So, they even played it as that. Oscar Isaac and John Boyega even said, like, we played it as a relationship because that's just how it felt. Yeah. And it's the thing, like, it's nice, as I said before, it's nice to see representation, but that's not really representation if you're not actually going to do it. Right. Like, when they had a gay couple in the background, it was like a 2-second thing, like, just kind of like, look, we're here. And that's the same thing with the spice running thing and, the other stuff. Like, we're here, but are we actually here? Just because we're showing up doesn't mean...
That's such a good way to put it, because for me, and I think I love having these conversations because it sparks so many different thoughts. It's so interesting to me because I'm straight, but versus somebody in the community who notices it, who feels it, who lives it every single day, can connect to that in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, my brain doesn't immediat't connect to that, even though I'm an ally. It doesn't mean the same thing when I think about it. And so, it's so interesting to think about that sheer fact of, like, that is something that immediately clicked with you. And for me, I also would love for that to have happened, but it was an afterthought, not like a feeling, And my roommate, her and I always have that conversation because now anytime that we, like, watch the movies or anything, we just, like, scream, "General boyfriends," because when they did the general interaction, we were like, oh, it's so cute, and we were, like, losing our minds. That would have been really good. Like, it would have been smart. It would have added to both of their stories, even if it was past, present, and future of their stories, and it just, like, such a minute detail as a relationship, like Han and Leia. That's a minute detail to me. It doesn't have anything to do, well, it does, but, like, it doesn't have deep roots into Star Wars, Yeah,
it's not what the entire thing's about. It's just that extra little thing that's happening.
Yeah, it's good. It's icing on the cake.
Yeah, and it's not even so much, like, people... I don't know, it's just an argument I guess I have all the time about this, because, like, people will argue, well, why do they need to be gay? Why do we need to have relationships at all? Well, why do you need to have straight relationships? Like, you see it all the time. And if we introduce it more, even in, like, this kind of capacity, I think that would help even younger generations to understand that, even if they are straight. Because, you know, something like, I'm used to seeing it, so I'm just constantly like, okay, this is what I want them to do. I want them to be gay. I want them to be together.
Right.
Because that makes sense for their characters, like the way they interact and how they are. But it's not something that I think I would have even recognized if this movie had come out when I was younger. Like, because it's just not in media. You don't see it a lot. So I think if we slowly expose that more and, like, give it a chance and have actual representation, you know, we could...
Because then it becomes something that clicks with everyone. Yeah.
Exactly.
They're just like, oh, this is a good moment. This is a thing that's happening. And we get... I was retracing my thoughts, but we get Rey and Kylo. Well, Rey and Ben.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, why don't we get Finn and Poe?
Thing too.
Yeah, why don't we get Finn and Poe? Like, it's all fine, you know?
I think if we just, like I said, if we just slowly introduce things to people and just have it be not like a beacon of just, yeah, they're gay, look at them, but have our kids be exposed to it so that way, you know what, at the end of the day, it's no longer, here's two guys in love. It's, here's two people in love.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be.
Yes, exactly. I love that. And I was hoping that you wanted to talk about this because I wanted to talk about it. Yeah, I wanted to talk about it too, and I was like, that's because it's such a hot topic around them, but like it's a hot topic about the industry in general, but just in general, thinking about Oscar, and I haven't seen any of the interviews where he talks about it. I haven't, like, I want to look for them, but I don't even, like, know where to find, like, the full interviews, and I hate just watching little clips because I don't know how they were cut, you know?
Okay, there's
so
no
I'm like,
context of, like, what the thing is.
Yeah.
But it's funny because a lot of even the cut like stuff that you do see is that context.
Yeah.
He is so disappointed that this did not happen that way.
Wow.
The two of them are. Like,
yeah.
They played it as that. It made sense to them. They were like, finally, this kind of representation, we're finally getting there. Something is happening. And then it was just taken away. Like, they just pulled the rug out of them. Like, it made sense for the two of them. They read the script, and it's like, okay, this is these characters. They're clearly in love. And nothing.
Dang.
Absolutely nothing.
I wonder, so a theory question, I guess, or maybe even just like a hopeful thought question. Do you think that they will do anything with it, ever?
With the two of them, probably not in visual media. Maybe in a book, maybe in a comic. It's the same thing that, like, the same issue arises in comic books in general. We just don't get representation. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's not like, you know, they're slowly we're getting a lot more. It's just when it comes to something that's already a property versus your own individual idea,
right?
Getting to budge is the biggest problem. Alienating fans. Well, you've been alienating us for years, so why can't you just, you know, do this? Yeah,
exactly. Well, and it's interesting you bring up the comics too, because I haven't read the Dr. Aphra comics, but that my friend Grace, I feel like her and I had it was a very short-lived conversation, but we were talking about it, and she's like, Dr. Aphra is like one of the few pieces of representation, and she's in a comic. And I was like, that makes sense, because I don't read those, so I didn't even know that relationship or her relationships existed, because I hadn't read them yet.
Which is so sad, because, like, a lot of the good stuff, I get it. You have, and it's the same thing that I've talked about with Marvel, too. Just, you have 2.5 hours to fit, like, 100 comics worth of story into that short time. So a lot of stuff is always going to get, you know, passed over. You're not going to see these things. But, and that's why we have, you know, all these books, and we have all these comics, and we have all these different types of media when it comes to Star Wars, because there's just so much you can't fit into, you know, the 2.5-3 hour mark, because there's 3 characters you have to pay attention to, like 3 main characters. They all have their own stories, and technically one of them is your main character, kind of how, like, Luke was. But I feel like they did it a lot better with the original trilogy. Like, we weren't so empty on these characters. Like, we had an understanding of who they were, but a lot of what we know about these characters also comes from the extra stuff, like finding out about Han and Leia's relationship, and that they do separate, they don't stay together forever, happened in a book.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that we find out about why, you know, Ben Solo turns to Kylo Ren, we don't find
it's coming out in a comic.
It's in comics. Like, it's sad that, like, these interesting little things we don't learn about unless we read something else.
Yeah.
Which, again, I get it, but I'd like to have a little bit more. Because that's also how people found out about Palpatine being a clone. Like, how do you explain that?
Yeah.
In a movie? There's no way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been reflecting on this too, because I actually had a conversation with a friend, and he was just like, what was good about this trilogy? And I'm like, there were so many things to love about this trilogy. I love this new trilogy. Not as much as I love the originals, not as much as, well, maybe as much as I love the prequels. I do love the prequels a lot, but like, I mean, I've watched Rise of Skywalker at least 4 times since it's come out, like, at home. And that's not including me buying it on digital, because I wanted to watch it and I was impatient about it. But, like, I love the sequels, but I do see the holes, and I see the emptiness of the moments that could have been more full. Like, I don't like the Canto Bight sequence. But I do think that a side adventure with Finn and Rose could have gone differently, and it would have been better than what they gave us. And then I don't like where they took Rose. I wish that she had been more present, but I'm not gonna take those and like knock down the whole trilogy because of it. You know, I'm disappointed in parts, but to me, they got to the end that they wanted. Whether or not that was great or good or okay or whatever, but it's just, there's so many things that they could have put in that they didn't. And I think that's really the big reflection that I've had. It's like, as much as I love the trilogy, I do also recognize that, like, instead of this, they could have done this, you know?
Oh, yeah. And it's flaws. We get it.
Yeah.
We get the flaws.
Right, exactly. And it doesn't, and prefacing this, or not even preface, but, like, just asterisking this for, like, our listeners, like, when we talk about the things, I like to have these conversations, because even though we're here talking about Poe, we're also deep diving into the franchise, and that's what our listeners even come here for, you know? They want to talk about Star Wars. And it's important to recognize that, like, just because you have qualms with things does not mean that you dislike it. Or you dislike
like it, hate everything about, like, the last movie and still be a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
There's no reason you can't.
Yeah, and there's no reason, we keep it positive at Kessel Run Weekly. There's no reason to get mad at other people either. Big disclaimer, because that for me has been a big thing, just like in the Star Wars community. I moderate a Facebook page. I moderate 2 technically, because I moderate ours as the Kessel Run Weekly page. And just being a podcaster, being a cosplayer, there are lots of things that you can face and interact with positively and negatively in the Star Wars community. And I think it's important for fellow fans to recognize, like, if you're in that situation, get yourself out of that situation. Defend yourself, but not to the point where it's messing with you. And also, don't be afraid to have those conversations. Like, Kimmy and I have never talked about Star Wars until now, you know? So we get to have this pure conversation about our views on this movie. And it's the first time we're each hearing our own points of view. And that, to me, is, like, the best part about Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. I think that's what I love about Star Wars, too, is that, like, for as negative as the community can be on certain things, like, you know, especially when The Rise of Skywalker came out, there was so much toxicity on the internet, because everyone was like, either you hated it or you loved it, and if you did one or the other side hated you. Mm-hmm. Like, there was no in between. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we're all Star Wars fans. It doesn't matter how long you've been watching Star Wars for. It doesn't matter if you know every little thing from every date to, you know, every detail. It doesn't matter if you're brand new and this is the first time you're watching the entire series. Mm-hmm. The fact that we can sit down and talk about things on any different level, whether it's, you know, going into the lack of Finpo, mm-hmm. or, you know, about Poe Dameron's background, or just the lack of representation, but how we could do better. Mm-hmm. That shows you there's more to this than just a space show.
Yeah, there's exactly. So yeah. Flip it to be positive, too. Just like you said, like, it's creating ideas and excitement around doing better. Like, for me, one of the biggest things in the cosplay community is people bashing on people of color, cosplaying somebody that isn't a person of color. And it's like, first of all, not your place to tell somebody that they can't cosplay someone.
Cosplay is for everybody. It doesn't matter what your background is. cosplay who you want to cosplay.
Yeah.
Just have fun. If you love a character, you should be allowed to cosplay them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you look exactly like them or if, you know, you're doing your own interpretation. That's the whole point of fan love.
Yeah,
That's
the best part.
To show how much you love something. You shouldn't be told you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, it's for everybody.
Yeah.
Be happy.
Kimmy, have you ever been to Star Wars Celebration?
No, and I wanted to go, and I'm moving to Florida so I can be closer to it. That might be one of the big reasons I'm moving there.
Nice.
I want to. I want to go so badly. It never worked out time-wise.
So I have tickets for California. It still hasn't been canceled.
Yeah.
But it's gonna.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not, maybe they're gonna like cut down the size. They're gonna be like, all right, only a few of you can come. We'll have another one. I don't really know what's gonna happen. I canceled a few things that were scheduled around it being in California, but it's one of the best, most positive places I've ever been for the Star Wars community. And I know it's not helping that there isn't going to be one that you can go to this year, but I know. But when you get the chance to go, it's awesome. I have never had a bad interaction at Celebration.
Which is awesome, because we're all just there for the same thing.
Yeah.
We're there for Star Wars. And, like, I've watched videos from Star Wars Celebration, because that's usually when, like, the trailers get released. I don't like watching just the trailer. I like watching it with the fan reactions going on in the background. So, you have this big crowd, and, like, especially with the last one, when you first heard the Emperor laugh.
Yeah.
It chills. I'm getting chills now.
Yeah.
Just, like, thinking about it again. Just the reaction and, like, all of that energy coming from the crowd. It's like, these are my people. They get it. They get the excitement.
Exactly. It's so worth it. Yeah. And I don't know where the next celebration is gonna be, but hopefully there's one in Florida so that you can go to it.
Because they've done Orlando before, and
I think twice now.
Please come back.
Yeah. I think twice now. My luck, they're gonna have it here whenever I leave here.
Oh no.
But it'll be fine. I'm going no matter what. I think my mom and I had that conversation because I didn't want to go to Celebration by myself, so I dragged her to it, and now it's like our thing. Yeah, it's awesome. And I was like, Mom, like, even if it's in London again, we're going. I don't care where we ought to fly to, we're going. So
sounds so exciting.
Yeah. My last question for you about Poe, just so we end on a Poe note, because as much as I love all of it, we're ending on a Poe note. What do you hope to see for his future?
I want to see more, I guess, just his life and his adventures and what he does next. Like, he had so much potential. Like, he hasn't gotten to that point that Leia wanted him to be at, because she obviously saw potential in him. She saw what he could be.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why we all know her. General Organa does not just entrust anybody with, like, important tasks like this. She sent him to find the most important piece to finding Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
Like, she trusted him with looting the Black Squadron. Like, she trusted him with everything. So she saw what he could do. And, like, in the comics, you start to see a lot of his growth and becoming the man he's supposed to be. I want to see that. I want to see him get there. And I want to see how, like, because, everyone's experiences shapes us to how we grow and how we become. So seeing him be this cocky pilot that, like, he knows he's so good because his mom was the best pilot. He learned from her. He is the right-hand man to General Organa. And, like, seeing his progression and seeing him become the man that she expected him to be, that's what I want him to be.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I get chills thinking about that because he's such a good character.
Yes.
Like,
and he's not even supposed to be here, which is the best part. He's not even supposed to be a character.
I just saw like information about that, and I was just like, wait, huh?
He was supposed to die. He was not supposed to live after they crashed on Jakku, and now he's one of the most prolific characters. He's in the three. He is the three.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just. I don't know, Oscar Isaac brought that character to life. He did such a great job, and that's, he embodied that cocky character. And but without being, like, a jerk about it. He was just, he meant well.
Yeah.
He just knew he was really good at it.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to see him grow and become what he needs to be. Like, The Last Jedi started to show us that, because he, instead of rushing out there to help, he was like, no, we gotta go, we gotta leave, this is all part of the plan. So, getting to see that, even though it kind of reverted in the Rise of Skywalker, where he was still
a little nervous,
not thinking things through, but that's still good, because it's not like he just suddenly overnight turned into this character. He's still that, that character that we first saw. But I want to see him keep going. I want to see him keep growing and go on crazy missions. And I want him to be in love with Finn. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens. Here's hoping, because it could. It could. They absolutely could write it into a story. I would love to see Poe. I'd love to also see that, like, his development into the man that he is in the movies that we see. But I would also just love to see post Rise of Skywalker what him, Finn and Rey, and then him himself are gonna do as far as the rebellion. Like, he's not a political leader. Like,
who leads them? The rebellion is gone. They blew up when the Starkiller destroyed everything. So, like, where do you go? The New Republic's gone. Like, the Starkiller, that blew up in the first one. There's no First Order. Is history just going to repeat itself again? Like, what do you do? What happens? Especially,
too, with, like, the political parties of Star Wars. Like, at this point, now with the First Order, there's probably some politics going on somewhere. Like, people are arguing about it, but they're not doing anything about it. And now Poe's like, I've been through this war. Is he going to decide, like, I've got to go be political now? Or is he going to just be like, we should just, like, go be free and then, like, defend people that need it, maybe? I don't know. That seems like what he would do, not be political about it and just be like, all right, we got to go, bye.
Yeah, no, he would be more of, like, the Han Solo type character who, gets brought into this world of politics and then just goes, I gotta go. I can't do this. Like, that's not for me. But I don't think out of the three of them, any of them are that kind of character where they would rise up and be a political figure and help lead. Like, Rey went to Tatooine. She's gonna stay there for a while. She's not coming back. She's gonna be alone. Finn's not really a political leader.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's still figuring his life out too.
That's the other thing. Like, he didn't have an arc in the third one, basically. Like, he just suddenly apparently is force sensitive. Okay.
Yeah, great.
This is good for you. So it's like, where these three characters I don't think fit that role. So where do we go? What happened? Now what? It's like at the end of is it Finding Nemo, where all the fish roll out to the street in their little bags, they get into the ocean, still in the bags, and they're just like, now what? That's them. What do they do?
Literally, what's next? Well, I think this has been a really productive conversation, and I appreciate you being here, Kimmy.
Thanks for having me. This is good. I was afraid at first. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? And then it turned into FinPal, so it's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. I honestly, I was nervous too, and like I mean, I've been doing podcasting for a while. I feel like a year now at least. And I'm still nervous every time I'm writing questions or anything, or like trying to figure out how to flow a conversation. I'm like, all right, well, like, I guess this will work, and then it just happens, it's always, it's always authentic, and I love that. So thank you for being here, and do you want to plug your social media and everything?
Oh, sure. You can find me, I guess on everything, like Twitter and Twitch at KimmyHazard. That's it.
Perfect.
It's not that hard to find me.
Yeah, nice. Kimmy's awesome. If you haven't seen any other content besides this episode, we do have a stream with her, like I said. I think we did it last week, which I think when this episode comes out, it'll be like 2 weeks ago. But it's on our Twitch page, twitch.tv/KesselRunWeekly, or like she said, twitch.tv/KimmyHazard. So feel free to check her out. Send us any questions if you have questions or concerns that you want us to relay to Kimmy, or just reach out to her. Don't forget that you follow me personally at CJerica on Instagram and CJerica95 on Twitter. My blog is up and running. Star Wars Sunday is active. The Kyber Crystal with 2 L's .wordpress.com. So check that out there. Leave comments, leave likes, share with your friends. And then don't forget to follow the main channel at Kessel Run Weekly on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And then join our Facebook group. It is called the Kessel Crew, or just Kessel Crew. KRW is in parentheses so that you know you've reached the right spot. Thanks for listening to Kessel Run Weekly. And may the Force be with you.
Always.